Cuba sí, bloqueo o no. End the blockade of Cuba.
Bloqueo no.
End the blockade to Cuba. Cuba sí, bloqueo no.
Cuba sí, bloqueo no. Cuba sí, bloqueo no. Cuba sí, bloqueo no. Cuba sí, bloqueo no. Cuba sí, bloqueo no. Cuba sí, bloqueo no. Hey, Joe. Bloqueo no.
Cuba sí,
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 Bloqueo no.
Cuba sí.
This is a Cuban spy! This is a Cuban spy here in America!
Saca la bandera
que se sienta el rigor, la fuerza de Cuba presente en este bello lugar. Aquí, en Nueva York, estamos reunidos y estamos en contra de las injusticias que hay en Cuba, ¿verdad? Así es de que todos, ¡arriba Cuba! ¡Abajo Blockade! Eso.
I
Why aren't they protesting over there at the freaking bar?
Cuba sin bloqueo no. 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 Give it up, give it up.
Howdy, folks. You can start gathering here. We're going to rally on this side in about 15 minutes. A very short rally here. Just a couple of speakers. And then we're going to do a walk over to 40 seconds. And then we're going to rally on that. So,
I got a few facts to share because we are in the heart of the empire. Will you let me share some facts? The U.S. dares to say that Cuba should remain in the terrorist list. This is the same government that has neglected its people, that it has allowed so much that people are homeless in the wealthiest country in the world. This is the same government that has allowed people in Mississippi to die. This is the same country that thinks it's okay to have one of the highest rates of unemployment and displacement. Being the wealthiest country in the world. And I want to emphasize the wealthiest country because it's not become the wealthiest country due to work. It has become the wealthiest country due to extraction, exploitation, and oppression. Are you hearing me? Who calls the U.S. government terrorist? The U.S. is sending trillions of dollars to go to war in Ukraine. Trillions! Well, we have high rates of poverty in this country. 140 million people live in poverty in this country. Who calls the U.S. terrorists? Haiti. How many of you know about Haiti? My people share an island with the Haitian people. And the United States, rather than sending aid or helping the Haitian people, has been the cause of chaos in Haiti since the early 1900s. How many of you know about Puerto Rico? And shout out to Milagros who's here. How many of you know about Puerto Rico? Puerto Rico is the longest standing colony of the U.S. Who calls the United States terrorists? The United States has dared to overthrow governments all across the globe.
This will be really good to bring
In my country, the Dominican Republic, they sent 80,000 Marines in 1965. 80,000. How many of you seen the instructor? That's the ship that went into my country to block the people from building a revolution. The only threat that Cuba poses to the United States is the possibility of war. That's the only threat that people are able to see, that it is possible for a government to put its people front and center, that it is possible for people to access free health care, that it is possible for people not to spend 70% of their income in rent, that it is possible for people to build a society divorced from capitalist exploitation and oppression. That's the threat. Any country that has dared to live free of empires, whether it is the U.S. or Iran or any of these big powers, has had to pay the price. Haiti has had to pay the price of 1804. But you know what? Is Cuba backing down? No! Is Cuba backing down? No! Are we backing down? No! Hell motherfucking no! My words are vulgar. If you're so hurt about what I just said, let me tell you a couple of more facts. The United States is costing Cuba $50 million every day with the blockade. $50 million! Over the last 60 years, we're talking about trillions of dollars. And it has the audacity to say that the Cuban system doesn't work. It's kind of the same shit you see people from my community in the Bronx, that we should have the ability and the capacity to rise above poverty. When capacity to dream, aspire, and get what we rightfully deserve. So when we say Cuba sí, bloqueo no, we're saying that we have the right and the need to communicate, to build exchange, to build lazos de amor with our friends, with our family, with our comrades in Cuba. And the United States has no right to tell us who our friends should be, because they are not our friends. If there was one thing that Ye did say right was that they don't care about black people. They don't care about Latino people. They don't care about poor people. And we should never forget that. The people of Cuba have more in common with us than who? U.S. government. Because they are what? Our friends. The Cuban people are our friends. Stay with me. The Cuban people are our friends. The U.S. government are our enemies. It don't matter if it's the Democrats, and it don't matter if it's the Republicans. They still allow more than 500,000 people to live in the streets. They still allow for us not to be able to eat. They still allow for unemployment to rise. They still allow for us not to access health care. Despite the atrocities of the United States government. You know what the Cuban people have done? You want to guess? They've resisted. They have resisted. And you know what else? They dared to live. And they dared to live with dignity, which is something that a lot of people in the United States won't see. They dared to live with dignity, which means that they're not going to bend over for U.S. capitalism. They're not going to bend to the will of any U.S. government. And we have to learn from them. Because when they take away our reproductive health rights, and we're out here like, we're going to vote. Who the fuck is that? Small government won't give the people what they need. Capitalism will never give you what you need. So we got to learn from the Cuban people. And it means taking power. Not in the pinky line, wash type of way that they taught us. Taking economic, political, and social power. And war, the hell that we're doing. And then we deploy all those more criminals behind bars. That's what we need to do. So I'll leave with this. Cuba sí. Cuba sí. Viva la revolución cubana. Viva el socialismo. Que viva el pueblo de Fidel Castro. Que vivan los hijos y las hijas de Vilma Espín. Y que viva el socialismo aquí ahora. Y'all look great. Que viva Puerto Rico libre. Y socialista, carajo.
And I'd like for now to have a few words from my brother Carlos Mazo from Puentes de Amor. Carlos and Puentes de Amor has been the inspiration for us getting in the streets to fight the blockade in city after city across the world. Brother Carlos.
Cuba sí. Cuba sí. Cuba sí. Up, up, pussy people. Up, pussy people. Brothers and sisters, this goes in English and Spanish. First, thank you everyone for being here. People coming from so many places in the United States. Thank you for being here. People from different mentalities, even from different ideologies are here today, fighting against the criminal and unhumane blockade to Cuba. We represent the Cuban Americans who oppose this criminal blockade. And we are here today with our brothers and sisters from the United States to tell the United States government that it's time to end this criminal blockade to Cuba. ¡Cuba sí! ¡Cuba sí! Hermanos y hermanas que vienen de diferentes lugares de los Estados Unidos, gracias por estar aquí hoy. Gracias a esas más de 100 organizaciones que hoy están aquí representando la voluntad del pueblo norteamericano de que se levanten las sanciones que pesan sobre el pueblo cubano. Vamos a marchar a las Naciones Unidas. ¿Quién va a tumbar el bloqueo? Nosotros. 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 ¡Cuba sí! ¡Cuba sí! ¡Cuba sí! ¡Viva Cuba! ¡Viva el pueblo de Cuba! ¡Viva Cuba! ¡Viva el pueblo de Cuba! ¡Puentes de amor! ¡Puentes de amor! ¡Puentes de amor! ¡Puentes de amor! ¡Arriba! ¡Vamos a tumbar el bloqueo! ¡Let's go everyone!
Thank you, Brother Carlos. Now, it's very important we're going to give instructions now of leaving this square. We're ending our rally now. And we have a certain arrangement with the
Let's get close. Let's fill in over here, and people back there, come on in around. We can fill in a lot over here. We got a lot of room on this side.
Where's your jacket?
Over there, so
We got more room if you want to come in through here. That was a great march full of wonderful energy, and let's keep that energy going. So I want to ask how many people here are Cuban American? Raise your hands. All right! Let's give them a big, big, big hand. I don't know if you know, but being Cuban American and speaking the truth about Cuba is a very dangerous thing in this country, right? Especially those of you who live in Miami. And I know we have a whole bunch of people that came. More than 20. More than 20 people came from Miami. Let's hear it for them. So I think it's quite remarkable that we have such a diverse group of people here. And that people in the Cuban American community, thanks to groups like Puentes de Amor, let's hear it for Puentes de Amor. Puentes de Amor! Puentes de Amor! Puentes de Amor! Puentes de Amor! And here we have Carlos Lasso, thank you. Puentes de Amor and other groups have really helped to lift that fog of fear, especially in Miami, so that more and more Cuban Americans around this country are feeling that they can speak out and that we have their back, right? That's what we have to do. So I wanted, before we introduce the first speaker, just to say something about the Code Pink campaign that I've been part of to get Cuba off that damn list of state sponsors of terrorism. Why don't you shout out to me a country you think should be on the list of state sponsors of terrorism? USA! I hear a lot of people say USA. I hear people saying Israel. You know, Israel commits acts of terror every single day and gets rewarded for it with $3.8 billion of our tax money. What's another state sponsor of terrorism?
Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, you know, the government lures in a Washington Post reporter into a foreign embassy, literally chops him up with a bone saw into pieces. Now, if that's not terrorism, I don't know what terrorism is. Is Saudi Arabia on that list of state sponsors of terrorism? No! And let me give one other example, because it's going to be the host starting next week of world leaders going to talk about the climate. And that country is?
Egypt!
Egypt, that's right. Egypt is going to host Biden and heads of state from around the world. Egypt is a country that has about 60,000 political prisoners. It's a country that is known for torture, disappearances, extrajudicial killings. Is Egypt on the list of state sponsors of terrorism? No! On the contrary, it gets over $1 billion from the U.S. taxpayer every single year. So it is absolutely absurd and shameful that Cuba is on that list. And a group of us yesterday went to the U.S. State Department. They told us not to talk about it, but we're going to talk about it anyway. We went to the State Department because we had over 10,000, and many of you, and if you haven't signed that petition, please go on the codepink.org website and sign it. And we had over 100 organizations, and we turned it in, and we managed to get a meeting. So we go into the meeting, and what is the first thing that they say to us? Well, this issue of Cuba being on the state sponsor of terrorism list, it's really not high up in our priorities. We wanted to say, what the F does that mean? But we were polite. And they gave us a whole rigmarole about how this is not a political issue, this is a legal issue. Because there are some fugitives from the U.S. law who live in Cuba, and the U.S. wants them extradited. First of all, those aren't terrorists. Second of all, there are U.S. fugitives living in countries all over the world, including France, and they are not on the state sponsor of terrorism list. And so they had no real answer for us. And I think we all know the answer is they are so stupid, they think they're going to get votes in southern Florida because they're so tough on Cuba. Those votes are going to the Republicans anyway. If you want a party that's tough on Cuba, you might as well go with the party of Marco Rubio, right? So here we have the Biden administration that some of us naively thought was going to follow the path of Obama and move to normalized relations. And instead, he's taken the path of Trump and tightened it even more. And why do I say that? Because it's during a pandemic. Because it's a time they know when the Cuban economy is suffering from the lack of tourists. And you know what they just started to do? They just started to enforce something called the ESTA. Well, 40 countries, European mostly, are allowed to come into the United States without a visa. They are called countries on the ESTA list. Now, those citizens from those countries, if they want to come to the United States, they can't come without a visa if they've traveled to Cuba. So this is another way that the U.S. is trying to stop tourism, stop cash flow coming into the country, strangle the Cuban people. They've been doing this for 60 years, and has it worked?
No!
Is it going to work?
No!
And one of the reasons it's not going to work is because of the resistance of the Cuban people. And the other is that we are building and building resistance here inside this country to say, take Cuba off the damn list of state sponsors of terrorism, get rid of all of those sanctions that have been imposed by the Trump administration and by every administration since the 1960s. So, we're going to start with our program now with Ben Ramos, who is in the Pro-Libertad Freedom Organization to free Puerto Rico. Let's hear it for Ben. Cuba sí. Cuba sí.
Cuba sí. Cuba sí. Familia, I have the unfortunate duty to let folks know that on Thursday, August 25th, longtime socialist revolutionary and Puerto Rican independentista Frank Vergara passed away after a 2-year battle of cancer. Frankie dedicated over 50 years of his life to supporting the Cuban and Vietnamese revolutions. He dedicated his life to the national liberation of Puerto Rico and to the release of all U.S.-held political prisoners. He was an unmatched force for liberation and revolution that touched various communities. I want everyone to save this date, Saturday, February 4th, 2023 at 3 p.m. at Holy Rood Church in Washington Heights. We're going to be celebrating his revolutionary work, his history of struggle, and we need everyone to come out that day. Right now, I do have the honor of introducing someone that Frank considered his sister and comrade in struggle. Our sister Milagros Rivera is the president of El Comité de Solidaridad con Cuba in Puerto Rico. She is also, que viva, Everyone with me. Free, free Puerto Rico.
Free, free Puerto Rico.
Free, free.
Puerto Rico.
Brothers and sisters, familia. She is also one of the coordinators of La Brigada Juan Ruiz Rivera that has taken thousands of Boricuas to Cuba to see the revolution for itself. So everyone, please, it is my honor to introduce and to translate for Milagros Rivera.
Saludos. Vamos a gritar una consigna para irnos en caliente. ¡Viva Cuba! ¡Cese el bloqueo! ¡Cuba sí! ¡Cuba sí! ¡Cuba sí! ¡Cuba sí! ¡Cuba sí! Bueno, les voy a hablar en español, en mi idioma, en el idioma de la resistencia boricua, que nos resistimos a esta invasión yanqui hace 124 años.
I'm going to be addressing everyone in Spanish, which is the language that we have been using to fight against U.S. colonialism for the past 124 years.
Esta actividad es muy importante. Dentro de pocos días se vuelve a la votación a las Naciones Unidas. 30 años la misma votación. Y el gobierno de los Estados Unidos está demostrando que es el verdadero dictador. El verdadero dictador que no respeta la decisión de los pueblos, la decisión de los gobiernos.
This activity is very important because in the next couple of days there's going to be the UN vote on the blockade. A blockade they've been voting for 30 years and the international community has always come out in support of Cuba. They have shown that the real dictator around the world is the US government.
A ustedes yo no les tengo que hablar de lo criminal que es el bloqueo, lo genocida que es el bloqueo. Ustedes están convencidos y convencidas. Así que nosotros tenemos que hacer un compromiso de hablarle a otra gente que todavía está desinformada, que no sabe lo que es el bloqueo, lo criminal que es el bloqueo, que no tiene el rostro humano para ver los efectos del bloqueo, no solamente a nivel de la economía, sino a cada cubano que ha tenido que sufrir ese genocidio por 60 años.
She doesn't have to explain to you what the blockade has done to Cuba, how it's an inhumane blockade, how it's a genocidal blockade. We all know this, but it is our job to go and educate other people that are not aware of what is happening in Cuba, to give it a human face so that people can see what is really happening, what the blockade is doing to people in Cuba.
Ese es el compromiso que tenemos los puertorriqueños y las puertorriqueñas de llevar la brigada a Cuba, que la gente se informe. No importa que el FBI nos persiga, y aquí lo decimos, lo reiteramos, nosotros vamos a seguir yendo a Cuba, vamos a seguir visitando Cuba, y el bloqueo se puede romper.
This is why La Brigada de Puerto Rico goes every year to educate Boricuas, to educate Puerto Ricans about what is happening in what is happening in Cuba and how the blockade is affecting it. And that no matter how much FBI repression they try against the brigade, they are going to continue going to Cuba. They're going to continue being in solidarity with Cuba.
Esperamos que después de esa votación, los gobiernos que votan en contra del bloqueo hagan lo propio y rompan el bloqueo. Los pueblos ya estamos organizándonos para romper el bloqueo. El bloqueo lo podemos hacer inoperante. Y eso es, yo creo, que uno de los proyectos más importantes. Pero para hacer inoperante el bloqueo, tenemos que hacer un llamado a la militancia, a la unidad, a la educación de otra gente que no tiene la misma información que nosotros y nosotras.
She's expecting that those countries that are going to vote against the blockade work to destroy this blockade, and that we have the ability to bring it down. We have to do it through militancy, education, organizing, and reaching out to all communities. Together we will smash this blockade.
Así hoy me siento muy feliz porque vi muchos jóvenes en esta actividad, también muchos jóvenes de mayor experiencia acumulada, que se supone, ¿verdad?, que hemos dado la resistencia, y eso es importante. Lamentablemente, cuando llegamos donde nos reunimos, escuché consignas de un grupito de gente que nació en Cuba, pero que no son cubanos, hablando a favor del bloqueo, A mí me gritaron por mi camiseta, terrorista, machetera, comunista, vete pa' Cuba. Pues mire, a eso yo no le temo. A eso yo no le temo y nadie le tiene que temer. Estaban esperando al compañero Carlos Lazo para seguirle gritando improperio. Nosotros no nos debemos dejar de provocar, pero también nos tenemos que dar a respetar. Así que cuenten con nosotros en Puerto Rico, cada actividad estaremos dando información y decimos, ¡viva Cuba socialista! ¡Que cese el bloqueo imperialista!
Milagros wants to end by saying that she's so happy to see so many young people here organized, coming out in solidarity with Cuba. She wanted to also, she said that while they were at Times Square, there were folks there, Cuban Americans. They're not really Cubans, they're really Americans. And they were there just chanting and talking about that they're pro the blockade and people who want regime change. They saw her t-shirt and some of them were calling her a communist, like if that's an insult, and telling her to go back to Cuba, which she has no problem doing. She says that we are reiterating our struggle. We need to go out there together, continue to build, and that you can count on the Boricuas on the island that are going con la brigada and the left in Puerto Rico. We will be standing together. We will smash this blockade.
Finalicemos diciendo con todos ustedes, los pueblos
Unidos jamás serán vencidos. Los pueblos unidos jamás serán vencidos. El pueblo.
El pueblo
Unido jamás será vencido.
Well, one of the things that we are doing here today is really honoring the voices of Cuban Americans. And I'm so excited to introduce the person who's going to introduce this person who's going to speak. Because Evo Morales is a great friend, a wonderful, wonderful activist in the Cuban American community in Miami. And let's give him a tremendous hand for coming all the way from Miami to be with us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for being here today. It's a really special day and it's so emotional and so important, and I'm so happy to get all of you here. Sorry, my voice. For the one that doesn't know me, my name is Ebel, and Cuban American and one of the organizers of the Miami Caravan. So for the one que no me conocen, mi nombre es Ebel Morales, cubano-americano de Miami y uno de los organizadores de la caravana de Miami, que por cierto es mañana. I'm here to introduce a very special person, someone that inspired me and others to fight and to stand up to the atrocity or the illegality of the Cuban blockade. I would like to, everybody raise your hands for my friend, the leader Puentes de Amor, and sometimes he say you have to be the light in the dark, and sir, you are the light in the dark. So come up here, Carlos Lazo. Thank you so much for all you do.
Puentes de amor, puentes de amor, puentes de amor, puentes de amor.
Well, brothers and sisters, we are in the front here, the United Nations. We are in front of the United Nations right now. Americans, Cuban Americans, people from different countries that come to this land of opportunities here, where we want to have the opportunity to ask to the United States government that obey the will of the people of the world, obey the will of all the countries of the world that for 30 consecutive years are asking the United States, humanity, please leave the inhuman and cruel blockade that you are over the Cuban people. Please stop the financial economic blockade against
Cuba. We are here today, and I have the certainty that sooner than later, with the help of everybody, with the help of people, just people, humanity, it doesn't matter if you are from the left or the right. That's what we say in our caravan. In the caravan of Miami, we have people who are not in the left, who are not in the right. We are just humanity, and we know, every decent person knows that the blockade is unhuman and illegal. And we are bound by our humanity. We are gonna lift that blockade. One day we are gonna look back and we are gonna say, wow, it took us a long time, but finally we achieved that. Hermanos y hermanas, además de ustedes que están aquí, hay cientos de personas, hundreds of people looking at us in the different live streams right now. Cientos de personas mirándonos en la directa. Estamos aquí frente a las Naciones Unidas, pidiéndole a los Estados Unidos, por favor, Estados Unidos, levante el bloqueo que pesa sobre el pueblo cubano. La humanidad entera, año tras año, le dice a los Estados Unidos, levante el cruel e inhumano bloqueo que pesa sobre el pueblo cubano. Y lo vamos a lograr. Nosotros, ustedes, el pueblo de los Estados Unidos, la humanidad entera va a alcanzar un día el levantamiento de las sanciones y se van a construir puentes de amor entre los pueblos de Cuba y de Estados Unidos. ¡Abajo el bloqueo! ¡Abajo! ¡Viva los puentes de amor! ¡Viva! ¡Cuba sí! ¡Bloqueo! ¡Cuba sí! ¡Bloqueo no! ¡Cuba sí! ¡Bloqueo no! Ahora quiero terminar, para los cubanos que están acá, cubanos americanos, quiero terminar, I want to sing and singing the Cuban national anthem. I know that some of you don't know it, but it's important, especially for hundreds of people that are there. Entonces vamos a cantar, eso que se sepan el himno, adelante. Al combate correr, vaya meses, que la patria os contempla orgullosa. No temáis una muerte gloriosa, que morir por la patria es vivir. En cadenas vivir es vivir. En afrenta y oprobios sumidos, del clarín escuchar el sonido, a las armas valientes corre. ¡Viva Cuba! ¡Viva! ¡Cuba sí! ¡Bloqueo no! ¡Cuba sí! ¡Bloqueo no! ¡Cuba sí! ¡Bloqueo no! ¡Bloqueo no! Que Dios los bendiga a todos. Muchas gracias, hermano. Adelante. Seguimos para adelante.
I don't know if you saw the haters who were out there had a poster with Carlos's face on it, and it said, terrorist. Does anybody think Carlos is a terrorist? He's a high school teacher from Seattle. Thank you for your service as a high school teacher. Thank you for your service to change the U.S. criminal blockade against Cuba. Our next speakers come from an organization that have been in the vanguard of trying to change U.S. policy towards Cuba for over 50 years now. And if you haven't heard of them, you better hear about them and think about going with them to Cuba, because that is the Venceremos Brigade. So I want to welcome Stella Frank and Franny Guzman. Here you are. Can you get up here? Or let's give a hand to Stella and Franny, who were the leaders of the 50th Brigade in 2019 and are now going to be leading the 51st Brigade and are raising funds to get a big group of people to go. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. How y'all doing? Good. We actually joined the Venceremos Brigade for the 50th anniversary in 2019. So
We're all leaders.
Nah, yes, we are. Thank you. So I'll pass the microphone to Stella first, and then I'll.
Hi everybody, I'm Stella. I use she, her pronouns. I've been organizing with the brigade since 2019 when Fanny and I went on the 50th anniversary brigade, and I organized with the New York, New Jersey chapter of the Venceremos Brigade.
Thank you, Estela. My name is Fanny Ortiz, or Fanny Guzman. I am from occupied Tongava and Chumash land, which is in sunny Boyle Heights, California. And I'm excited to be here with Joe as a mother of 5 Puerto Ricans. Daughter of Mexican Americans, so it's in the blood. And my gender pronouns are she, her, ella. So like I said, I joined the Venceremos Brigade in 2019. The Venceremos Brigade is an anti-imperialist project of political education and voluntary labor in solidarity with Cuba. The BB is the first brigade created in solidarity with Cuba since 1969. We are an intergenerational, multiracial, multicultural, gender-expansive, inclusive collective of volunteers committed to changing U.S. policy toward Cuba and strengthening the relationships between the Cuban Revolution movement for justice in the U.S. This year marks the 60th anniversary of the U.S. blockade against Cuba, an economic blockade that is against the preservation of humanity during a global COVID-19 pandemonium. We have all been impacted in multiple layers in our lives by the pandemic, but no one is more vulnerable than Cubans who have been limited in their dignity due to their ideology to sustain life before profit. We're running out of time, so I'll just let, and I just want to say that we believe Cuba should be removed from the state-sponsored terrorist list, and I'll let Stella talk a little bit more.
Yeah, I'll just wrap it up really quickly and say that it's been such a privilege to travel with the VB, and we're going back this December, but we do need help getting people there. People need aid. It's expensive to travel there, and so if you're able, please consider donating on our website, or if you'd like to donate some other way, you can approach us after and ask, and we'd love to build community with you all. Thank you so much.
Viva Cuba!
Viva Cuba!
Viva Puerto Rico! Thank you. Viva the Venceremos Brigade! Anybody here, raise your hand if you've been on a Venceremos Brigade trip. Brigadistas, manos arriba, que bien. Hasta la victoria siempre. And our next speaker is somebody who organizes locally and nationally, and probably internationally as well, right? We are very, very honored to have Erin Feely-Naham, who is representing today the Saving Lives campaign.
Thank you, Medea. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here, and good afternoon. My name is Erin Feely-Naham, and I'm here today representing the International U.S.-Cuba Normalization Committee's Saving Lives campaign. The Saving Lives campaign was born in the spring of 2020 at the beginning of the pandemic. It was created by the International U.S.-Cuba Normalization Conference Committee, and it included the National Network on Cuba, the Canadian Network on Cuba, and La Table of Quebec. Its purpose was to push for U.S.-Cuba Canadian collaboration. Medical collaboration, but medical collaboration, thank you. Our efforts focused on several areas: medical collaboration, solidarity aid, and legislative work, which focused on the creation of resolutions. All work focused on ending the U.S. blockade. Since the beginning, Global Health Partners and the Saving Lives campaign have played an important role in calling for an end to the blockade while providing urgently needed medicine and medical supplies to Cuba. Last year, the Saving Lives campaign, which represents dozens of local committees and national organizations that oppose the blockade, donated more than 6 million syringes and tons of PPE to help support Cuba's COVID vaccination efforts. Although Cuba had developed 5 COVID vaccines, 3 of which had an efficacy rate of 92.8, as well as the first COVID vaccine for children 2 years and older, they were unable to administer the 3-dose vaccine because the U.S. blockade kept them from purchasing syringes they needed to do so. Our donation saved countless lives and helped Cuba to vaccinate its entire population. This year, the Saving Lives campaign once again provided substantive aid to Cuba's public health system, sending 40 containers filled with 7 anesthesia machines, sutures, and tons of medical and surgical equipment with a value of more than $2.5 million. That's more than the U.S. government recently offered Cuba to support Hurricane Ian recovery efforts. These efforts wouldn't have been possible, though, without the hard work and organizational skill of Bob Schwartz. Bob Schwartz, amazing, amazing, amazing. He helped everybody on all of the different solidarity aids with this. Global Health Partners Executive Director, and Javier Bahania, Global Health Partners Latin American Program Director for almost 3 decades. Sadly, Javier Bahania recently passed away unexpectedly, which is an incredible loss to his family and friends, to Global Health Partners, and to the Solidarity Movement. Javier's work included 2 humanitarian visits to Cuba by boxing great Muhammad Ali, the task of coordinating a delegation led by two surgeon generals to Cuba, and 3 dozen surgical training exchanges. All who were touched by his love and his work are devastated by his loss. Javier was a passionate, dedicated member of the Cuba Solidarity Movement. Javier Bahania, presente. As Cuba opened up, allowing travel again, Code Pink, IFCO, Puentes de Amor, the People's Forum, Answer, and other solidarity activists traveling to Cuba continued this important effort, bringing medicine, powdered milk, and medical and building supplies. Dozens of tons of supplies were carried across the water by us, the solidarity activists. This is symbolic. This is not charity. We're doing this to express our solidarity and to make a political statement, because we know this is just a drop in the bucket in terms of what Cuba really needs. This is beyond Hurricane Ian or the needs following the Matanzas fire. This is about the U.S. government's stepped-up efforts to asphyxiate the Cuban social and economic system. The blockade is worse than any natural disaster. It is relentless and has continued for over 62 years, with Biden's administration now refusing to end it.
Yeah, of course. So you're just...
The Saving Lives campaign also focused on the creation and adoption nationally of resolutions supporting ending the blockade and saving lives through scientific collaboration with Cuba regarding the COVID pandemic. So far, the U.S. city councils, county boards, state legislatures, school boards, labor councils, unions, workers' organizations, and others have passed 55 resolutions which have addressed supporting ending the U.S. blockade on Cuba and saving lives through scientific collaboration with Cuba regarding COVID. You can see the extensive list of cities, states, unions, and other organizations involved in these efforts on our website, us-cubanormalization.org. It's a national phenomenon and extremely impressive, covering states all across the United States: Montana, Michigan, Minnesota, California, New Haven, Chicago, Massachusetts, and New York. We're working on it. And soon I'm going to introduce you to Angie, and she'll tell you a little more about that. Ending the blockade is how Cuba will live and prosper. That is our job. Cuba has been pounded by the deepening U.S. aggression under Trump, and Biden is working to make it a failed state. Just as he claims it is, which we know it isn't. The effects of the blockade are compounded by the Saratoga explosion, the Matanzas fire, and Hurricane Ian, on top of the cost from COVID, which they defeated heroically for now. The only way to provide Cuba with real relief is to end the blockade and take Cuba off the list of terrorist states. But to do this, our efforts and campaigns need to force open a real defiance of the blockade from states, institutions, and countries internationally. The blockade must be challenged. Hopefully, we will again see this done on November 3rd, following the UN General Assembly vote. Thank you. Oh, now it's my pleasure can I say one thing? There is a press conference for the resolution for our New York City Council resolution called by City Council Person Barron on November 1st at 1 p.m. on the City Hall steps. We hope you will all come out. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Angie Langdon. She's from IFCO Pastors for Peace and a fantastic solidarity activist.
Thank you, Aaron. I lost my voice on the way here because our vanguard over here, y'all were killing it. Everybody did so great. We only have one chance in the streets, so I'm really proud of everyone for being so loud, being disruptive all the way here. I am here specifically to talk about Resolution 0285, which is the New York City resolution to end the blockade and travel ban on Cuba. Right now, as Aaron said, it has 15 co-sponsors. We need 15 more. 16. Oh, we have 16. There we go. We need 14 more. Oh no, I'm destroying them. Oh no. No.
Full with the way it goes.
So,
in the back. Play with it in the back. Oh, ran out of juice?
No. We had another one, don't we? Back up.
I think it's just ran out of juice.
okay.
Talk. Use it. Yeah, just talk.
Yeah, I'll just talk. Well, how unfortunate.
No, the piece broke.
Okay.
We need a megaphone.
Here you go. No, it's fine. It's fine. I'm gonna be yelling. Okay. All right. Let's start over. Resolution 0285, the New York City resolution to end the blockade and travel ban on Cuba. If you are here, or if you're a New York resident, who's a New York City resident? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Where you at? Okay. Do not leave this plaza until you sign our resolution. I have a QR code for you to scan, sign. It takes 2 minutes. Over here we have Shelby. Shelby is a part of our New York, New Jersey affinity group with IFCO Pastors for Peace. They also have a QR code to help sign. We need as many signatures as possible so we can go to our council people and say, New York is done with the blockade. We need it to end now, right? Because the blockade, the resolution, it's not just a piece of paper, right? It's in defense of the truth, right? It is our moment to change the narrative on what's going on in Cuba and in our own lives, right? I just found out yesterday that the literacy rate in the U.S. is 54%. Wow. 54%. 54% of people cannot read above the level of 6th grade in the U.S. In Cuba, it's 100%. Right? So when we look at that, when we look at their longevity of life, the fact that they outlive us, right? That they have vaccines that we can't get to because of our own government. I mean, what are we doing? Right? What is our government doing, and when are we going to call for it to end? I think it's today. Y'all think it's today? What y'all think it's today? There we go. Okay, so sign the blockade. Your vision is not just to sign this piece of paper, but to defend the truth, to create the narrative, to let people know what we can do, how we can organize as a city, as a country, and what we can bring back to the U.S. As soon as tomorrow, if we can get it together.
It broke?
All right. Also, if you've never been to Cuba, come with me. We go with IFCO Pastors for Peace. Brittany, a few people have come on the caravans. Is your opportunity to explore Cuba in an entirely culturally enriched way. We look at racism in Cuba, gender in Cuba, religion in Cuba, anything you can think of. We're going to ask questions. You're going to get the opportunity to really see it for yourself, because once you know the truth, you can't go back. All right? So that's that. If you have any questions, let me know. If you haven't signed the petition, which is a lot of you, come find me or Shelby. Who's talking? Over there. All right. Anyway.
So the problem is
well, I'm done.
Yeah, the mic.
My 5 minutes.
Talk to neighbors. Some of the neighbors actually joined us in helping with the repair, and it would be amiss, certainly, for us not to pay recognition to this campaign to defend artistic freedom. The mural depicts Che Guevara and Juan Albizu Campos, the Puerto Rican flag and the Cuban flag, and with the slogan, two wings of the same bird. And regardless as to one's view on either leader, we defend the right, our right, and everyone's right to have an opinion, express that opinion, free of any violence and intimidation. If anybody wants to get involved in this piece of the campaign or in Cuba Sea Work, New York, New Jersey in general, please email us, nynjcubac@gmail. nynjcubac@gmail. Thank you.
Cuba Sea! Cuba Sea! Cuba Sea! Now I want to introduce two people who have really dedicated their lives to this. One is somebody who is working tirelessly in Miami, negotiating with the police constantly to keep the haters away from the lovers. We're the lovers. And that is Pete Seidman coming all the way from Miami. And the other on the lover's side is Cheryl LaBash, who is the co-chair of the National Coordinating Committee on Cuba. Let's hear it for Cheryl.
Okay, I'm going to start this part, but you're going to finish it. This is where we say we take ourselves seriously. And at the church last night, in the People's Church, Milagro Rivera gave a quote from Jose Marti, which my memory isn't good enough to fully reproduce. But the main point was that the Yankees have a plan, and we need to have a plan. Theirs is a plan of hate and lies. Ours is a plan of solidarity and truth. One thing that makes us different is that the Yankees have a lot of money. I always think when I'm working in Miami to build the caravan, how the National Endowment for Democracy, in 1 year, I believe their budget is something like $20 or $30 million just from the National Endowment of so-called democracy. And that money is sloshing around the streets of Miami. It's paying for fancy sound systems from the haters. It's paying for trucks that have, LED displays on the side. It's paying for right-wingers like those ones we saw. Did you know the right-wingers who were here before at Times Square? They were from Miami. Yeah. They probably got flown up on first class.
Hello, line in.
It's time to...
Here you go, baby.
Okay. Did everybody hear what I just said? I'm not going to repeat it. The basic point is that our opponents, who are the ones who organized the blockade of Cuba and who politically justify it and who have created an aristocracy of hate within the Cuban community of Miami, they have a lot of money. Just that one agency, the NED, $20 to $30 million a year. So, our job is to present our plan. Our budget is much more limited. In fact, our national plan for the year of 2022 starts now with you. You're the first budget line, and we're asking you, we have a team of people with buckets going around, orange buckets, and we're asking you to donate as generously as you can. I know there are more than 20 people who came up here from Miami, and that's going to be a stretch for them, but others who didn't come as far or have a chance to have a little more to give, we're asking you to do that because we have expenses to do things like this, and we have to pay our own way, and we don't even want those rich people in Washington, D.C. to be paying it for us.
Okay.
So, I see, I don't know, there we are. Okay, Ike is handing out buckets, and it's your chance to put something in them. And now I'm going to introduce Cheryl, who will be exhorting you while we take the collection. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pete.
We all know in our communities that there are organizations that say that they are doing the public good, and they're funded by Chase Bank, they're funded by Skillman, they're funded by Ford in Detroit. We don't have funders like that, and honestly, we don't want them. We don't want them because we don't want them to control our movement and tell us what we can say and what we can't say. We have a people-powered movement, and it's people-funded. That means that when the Saving Lives campaign put out the call, when Cuba put out the call that they had vaccines, but they did not have syringes to protect the Cuban people. It wasn't just in the United States and Canada. Around the world, people came together to make sure that Cuba had that gap filled so it could recover from the pandemic that had hurt it, not only hurt the people in killing them and making them sick, but it took resources from other things, and in fact, it cut one of the major sources of income. What happened was people in the movement, some who had more, some who had less, some who collected on the street, put together all that money. We can do it if we do it together. And that's why we're asking you, why Pete and I are making this fund appeal, for people to give what you can. And then think about it in your community or in your own organizations on how we can help fund young people to go to Cuba and learn for themselves, to learn that the world doesn't have to be what we're enduring here, that there's hope for the future, and it's in Cuba. It's in Cuba and the resistance, the education, and the love that is just abundant in Cuba, and they should not have to suffer. So while we're fighting against the blockade, please consider what you can do in your community and what you can do today to help with the expenses, and there are expenses, even though we're all volunteers, there are expenses to putting together, I mean, this microphone didn't pop out of nowhere.
Well, it sort of did.
Yeah,
Might have popped out of a car.
So, you know, while the bucket is going around, please dig deep. Thank you.